Okay, welcome everyone for our webinar on the Yoga Sutras on Asana and Pranayama. Our special guests or our panelists today are Ashwini Surpur and Dr. Sriram Sarvatam. And I'll just give them a brief introduction. We have several yoga courses at HUA, and as part of our weekly webinar series, we like to bring experts, answer some of your questions, and talk about what's going on at HUA. And Dr. Sriram Sarvatam has actually been an ardent practitioner of yoga since childhood. He was initiated into yoga by his teacher, Yogacharya R. Subramanian from Chennai, India, of course, with whom he studied for 14 years. I actually had the privilege of having Dr. Sriram Sarvatam teach some of the classes in a holistic yoga course I took at HUA back in the fall or winter of last year. Sriramji is actually a founding member of Ekashri Schools of Yoga and is also a faculty member of the teacher training program at Yoga Bharati. Sriramji is a recipient of the Exemplary Service Award in Yoga given by the Consulate General of India in 2015 and the Yoga Service Award given by ISKCON in 2009. And our other panelist, professor, teacher at HUA with us today is Ashwini Surpur, who had an engineering career, a software engineering career with Oracle. She worked in that field for 15 years, but she's a yogacharya also, right? She's a person who's working in yoga in the field of yoga since 2010. She's been a full-time volunteer staff at Yoga Bharati, which is based in California. And she's got a great passion for teaching, working with people I know personally. I'm glad to have her join us again for a webinar this Saturday. And I will hand it over to President of Hindu University of America, Kalyan Vishwanathan, who may want to give some framing. He has a favorite question he's going to ask the audience, and I will hand it over.
Well, everybody's anticipating my favorite question, so I'm going to ask a different question today, maybe. But let me just welcome everybody to the webinar today. So I want to acknowledge that there are two different audiences here. There is an audience from the general public who have joined, to the webinar. But there's also an audience from the current orientation to Hindu studies course. So the question I'm going to ask in the chat window is to all panelists and attendees: are you from the current OTHS course? If you just answer yes. If it's a no, you don't have to answer really. That's the question. In the chat window, please go ahead and answer. Okay, lots of no's. Okay. That's very few. All right. Okay, good. So, so people who haven't taken the orientation to Hindu studies course yet should take it as soon as possible. I think that's a great way to get into the Hindu studies curriculum. Now, I'm going to show you two slides, and then we'll hand it over to Sriram, Dr. Sriram Sarvatam. Okay. So let me share my screen. So this is a slide that really pertains to the orientation to Hindu studies course. And there are many areas of studies at Hindu University of America, each one with its own collection of courses and programs of study. Now, broadly, there are these two dimensions to the curriculum at HUA. On the one hand, there is the dimension of deep immersion into Hindu thought that takes the characteristic of Sanskrit studies, Hindu studies foundations, texts and traditions, and then yoga studies. And today we are going to focus in on yoga studies. The other dimension of the curriculum at Hindu studies at Hindu University of America is deep engagement with Western thought. And here you're going to, encounter courses and programs of study that deal with post-colonial Hindu studies, history and method, conflict and peace studies, and so on. These are the 7 areas that are currently active, and many courses are being offered in these programs. But we will be adding more areas of study in the future. We're not certainly limited to this, but this is where we are beginning. Now, in terms of yoga studies, there's a whole collection of courses, and I'm just going to show you a series of courses here. So, Holistic Yoga 1, Concepts and Techniques, Holistic Yoga 2, Practice Intensive, Holistic Yoga Teacher Training Intensive, Teaching Holistic Yoga Retreat. So all of these are kind of courses that build on top of the other, meaning they represent a kind of a sequence. And then there is Antaranga Yoga. And there are specialized courses like managing back pain through yoga, or managing diabetes through holistic yoga, and so on. Again, this is only an early collection. We probably will have many more courses in this area. The courses that are being offered next quarter, there is a quarter starting the second week of January, are the following. Holistic Yoga 1, Concepts and Techniques, Holistic Yoga 2. Holistic Yoga 2 Practice Intensive is actually starting in November. It's a 1 week long intensive, starting within the next 10 days or so. That's this quarter. Teacher Training Intensive is another course being offered in the winter quarter. And then the 4th course being offered is Managing Diabetes through Holistic Yoga. We'll probably offer Antaranga Yoga too, but we've not yet scheduled it. So those are upcoming courses for all of you to explore. And with that very brief introduction, I'm going to stop sharing and turn the presentation over to Dr. Sriram Sarvotams. Sriram, welcome to the webinar, and take it away, please.
Thank you, and namaste. Thank you to HUA for giving the opportunity once again to share about yoga. And today's topic is asanas and pranayama according to the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. So let me begin by sharing the slides. Okay. So allow me to begin with a short Dhyana shloka, or an invocation chant on Maharishi Patanjali. Om Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarotam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi. So as we begin the topic of asanas and pranayama according to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, let us take a step back and see what is special about the sutra form of writing. So what can we expect when we begin the study of the Yoga Sutras, and specifically on the topic of asanas and pranayama? So when we look at the word sutra literally means thread. The English word suture and the Sanskrit word sutra, they come from the same root. So we can think of a sutra as a thread of knowledge. In fact, there is a definition of what is a sutra in one of the Sanskrit scriptures. And the definition is the following, you see on the slide here. Alpaksharam asandigdam saravat vishwatomukham astobam anavadyam cha sutram sutra vido viduhu. The meaning is, the sutra form of writing should capture the essence of a subject in very few words. No superfluous words, no filler words, no repetition. So with very few words to capture the heart of a subject. And the sutra text should be comprehensive. It is not a partial text. It should capture all aspects of that subject. So these are the 6 attributes of sutra form of writing. Very few words, and the meaning should be clear. It cannot be interpreted in many ways. It should have an unambiguous meaning. And it captures the essence of that subject. It should be comprehensive. There are no repetition or filler words, and it should contain truth. It should contain irrefutable truth. It cannot be disproved. So these are the characteristics or attributes of sutra form of writing. And to give a picture, this is how I would like to think about what a sutra form of writing is. Suppose we look at some real world object. So this is actually an example from Picasso's work, where he captured the essence of a bull that you see here. So what are the very few strokes, the minimum number of strokes with the painting brush that can capture the essence of that object? So to expose the essence or the essential identity of that subject, the soul of that subject, by eliminating all the non-essential forms or non-essential features to go to the heart of the matter. That is what sutra is about. To give an example from science, when we think of the 3 laws of Newton, for example, they are expressed in a sutra form because those 3 statements of Isaac Newton, they capture the heart of classical physics. So everything else in classical physics is nothing but the details and the features that is added on to these 3 fundamental principles that Isaac Newton has proposed. So like that, sage Patanjali has captured the essence of the subject of yoga in the Yoga Sutras. Now, I'm sure you will agree with me that in order to capture the essence of any subject, it requires a great deal of insight. It requires profound insight. That is why we call our rishis as seers. They're able to see something that we cannot see, to go into the soul of something, to get to the heart of a matter. It requires a profound insight. And that is why Maharishis, like the great Patanjali, with their profound insights, they were able to capture the essence of that subject, essence of yoga, and revealed it to us. So when we look at the Yoga Sutras, this is the bird's eye view.
If you can make your screen full screen, please. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
Sure, let me do that. Okay, I hope it's the full screen is visible.
No, it's not. It's showing up with 2 different. You have to get into a different view.
Okay.
Maybe click that use slideshow.
Okay.
Great.
So the Patanjali Yoga Sutras contain 195 sutras, 195 terse statements or threads of knowledge. And these 195 sutras are organized into 4 chapters. Samadhi Pada, which is a chapter on samadhi or mental equipoise. The second chapter is Sadhana Pada, the chapter on practices. The third chapter is Vibhuti Pada, chapter on yogic powers. And the final chapter is Kaivalya Pada, the chapter on liberation or freedom. Now, when we look at these 195 sutras, in fact, beginning students of Yoga Sutras, they discover that only 3 of these sutras talk about asanas. And this is a profound revelation, perhaps a surprise to many, because most of the yoga books, they talk mostly about asanas. You open a yoga book, you see pictures of yogasanas, but Patanjali devotes only 3 sutras on asanas and a little more, 5 sutras on pranayama. So this is what we are going to see today. And so what this shows is that the practice of asanas and pranayama, they are only a very thin slice of the broad spectrum of yoga practices. But in these 3 sutras on asanas and 5 sutras on pranayama, Patanjali captures the essence of asanas. So if you want to go to the soul, the heart of the matter, the heart of the asana practice and pranayama practice, it is very beneficial to know these 3 principles on asanas and 5 principles on the pranayama. And knowing these principles will profoundly elevate the quality of our yoga practice. So just like Isaac Newton was able to capture the classical physics in 3 statements, like that Patanjali has captured the art of yogasanas in 3 statements. So let us look at these 3 sutras. So when we look at the practices that Patanjali gives in the Yoga Sutras, they can be broadly classified into 3 streams of practices. And the first stream is called Samadhi Yoga or Raja Yoga, and this is mostly from the first chapter. These are all inner practices called Antaranga Sadhana. They're all mental or inner practices, and this is actually meant for adept yogis. Those who have ekagra chitta, that means they have the ability to focus their mind on one thing. The second stream of practices is called Kriya Yoga, the yoga of action or yoga of purifying action. And this is intended for beginning students of yoga. And here the objective is more for purification of the body and mind. And the basic principle is that it is easier to control the body to do action rather than the mind to control thought. It's easier to control the body than the mind. And then in the middle of these 2, between Kriya Yoga for beginners and Samadhi Yoga for adepts, sits this third stream of practice, which is the Ashtanga Yoga, which is the 8 limbs of yoga. And I'm sure many in the audience are familiar with the 8 limbs of yoga. And this 8 limbs of yoga, you can think of as a holistic combination. It contains segments from all parts of yoga, starting from postures and then breath work and meditation and so forth. In fact, the practice of Kriya Yoga is contained within Ashtanga Yoga. Kriya Yoga is a subset of Ashtanga Yoga, and many of the practices in Samadhi Yoga you will also find in the Ashtanga Yoga as well. So asanas and pranayama are actually in the third stream, the Ashtanga Yoga. Asana, in fact, is the third limb of the Ashtanga Yoga, and the pranayama is the 4th limb of Ashtanga Yoga. Now let us begin looking at the actual sutras of asanas and of pranayama. So the first sutra where Patanjali defines what is asana is the following: Sthira Sukham Asanam. You will find the sutra in the second chapter, 46th sutra, Sthira Sukham Asanam. That body posture which is steady and comfortable is asana. Now you will notice Patanjali uses very few words. In fact, Sthira Sukham Asanam, this statement does not even have a verb. It is not even a complete sentence. They are just 3 nouns put together. It's like a bullet point. So remember that sutra means we capture the idea in very few words. So here Patanjali defines asana as that body posture that is steady and comfortable. So what does it mean? Here Patanjali has given the core aspect of the definition of asana, but let us delve into what exactly does it mean. So when we look at an example of a tree, you see both these aspects. A tree is firmly rooted to the ground, and that's why it is a stable object. In other words, it's stably rooted to a firm foundation. So there is stiram there. And then there is sukham also, because the tree, the leaves of the tree have the ability to move. They have the ability to express themselves and dance with the wind, with the flow of the wind. So freedom of expressing oneself, that is what Sukham is. In fact, the word Kam means space, and Sukham means comfortable space. We have space to be who we are, to express ourselves. So freedom, we can think of Sukham as freedom to be ourselves. So when both these aspects are there, stability and this comfort, freedom to express ourselves, this is asana. We can think of the tree as doing a yoga asana. In fact, one of the postures is called the Vrikshasana, the tree pose. In Vrikshasana, we try to mimic the tree, firmly root ourselves to the ground, at the same time express ourselves and reach the infinity. So this is the example of a tree in asana. And then what does it mean by stability? What exactly does the word Sriram mean? So when we think of stability, we can define, one of the definitions of stability is the state of something that does not easily change shape. So when we look at the examples of some stable objects, you see on the left side of the slide here. So like a chair, for example, it's a stable object because it has a cohesive unity. It does not easily change shape. If you want to move the chair from one place to another place, you just drag one leg of a chair and the whole chair moves along with it. It's easy to control the chair. Stable objects are very easy to control because they have a cohesive unity. Whereas unstable objects, examples of unstable objects you see on the right side of the slide, like a pile of sand, for example, it's just a collection. There is no cohesive unity to it. If you want to move the pile of sand from one end of the room to another end of the room, you have to make multiple trips, take handful of sand and make multiple trips. You cannot drag the entire pile of sand with just one handful. It doesn't have a cohesive unity, so it's more difficult to control. So the essential point here is when there's a cohesive unity in the body, when there is stability in the body is easier to control. And we experience that ease of control as a feeling of lightness. The body feels light when the body is steady. So to give an example, let us take the plank pose or the Dandasana. Dandasana. You may do this posture as part of the sun salutation, for example. So in the stable version, when there is Sriram in the plank posture, the whole body has a cohesive unit. It's like a firm plank. Whereas when the stability is destroyed, when the body is no longer firm, perhaps the pelvis is hanging loose, like you see on the right side, unstable plank, then you can think of the unstable plank as two separate objects that are connected together. It doesn't have a single cohesive unity. It's two different objects that are just stuck together. Now, in a stable posture, there is ease of control that we saw from the previous slide. And that ease of control is experienced as a feeling of lightness. So when we hold the posture stable, we feel a lightness in the body. This lightness in the yogic texts, it is called Angalagavam. Angalagavam means lightness of the body. And in fact, one of the definitions of health in Ayurveda is when the body feels so light that you forget your body, then you are healthy. Then the body is healthy. Because we become keenly aware of the body only when something goes wrong. For example, when we have a headache, we become very keenly aware of our head. But when we forget the head, like now, for example, we were not very keenly aware, oh, I have a head, or I have a left big toe. We are not keenly aware of the body. If we forget the body, that means we are healthy. The body is so stable that it feels so light that we forget the body. So this is the significance of stability or Sriram in the body. And the other aspect is Sukham. And Sukham enters the yoga asanas in the following way. As we saw before, Kam means space and Sukham means comfortable space. And the space element within the body is in the lungs. When we draw in air, we fill the space of the lungs. So Sukham in the context of yoga asanas is the freedom to breathe. In other words, unrestricted movement of the breath. Sometimes in a yoga posture, when we feel choked or when we feel the inability to breathe, that means we have overdone the posture. That means we are not experiencing sukham. Now, as yoga teachers, for example, if you look at some yoga students, how can we identify whether they are in sukham or not? And the answer is, you cannot look at it from their smile because they can flash a fake smile. Whereas the breath will never lie. So when we listen to their breath, whether it is flowing easily in an unhurried manner, then that is the indication of sukham. The ease of the breath is the indicator of the sukham that we experience. So this combination of stiram and sukham is asana. And then Patanjali goes on to say, prayatna shaitilya ananta samapattibhyam. In this sutra, he talks about once you get into the asana, what do you do next? You have established that stiram and sukham, then what is the next step? And the next step is the following. Offer some effort first. Prayatna means effort to get into the posture and hold the posture. And then shaitilya, relax that effort. So you make a little one step of effort and then relax that effort. And once again, make the next step of effort and relax the effort. And slowly we expand our zone of comfort. So this prayatna shaitilya is an important practice in the yoga asanas, effort and relaxation. And when we do this effort and relaxation, cycles of effort and relaxation, ultimately we will allow ourselves to experience samapatti. Samapatti means samadhi or equanimous state of mind. And Patanjali says ananta samapatti, endless bliss. Endless bliss. This is what we experience when we do this effort and relaxation. And why effort and relaxation? What is the mechanics behind it? Here is a simple chart that describes the principle behind it. So suppose we don't offer any effort, we just simply relax, like a couch potato, for example. We simply lays out. Then we are in this place called comfort. By being a couch potato, you can go to what is called a local minimum. This is not the deepest relaxation, but we are stuck in some local minimum. It is comfortable, but it's not deeply relaxing. But if you want to get out of this comfort zone and enter the space of deep relaxation, then a little amount of effort is needed to launch us out of this little bubble and then to enter this deep relaxation. So that is where the prayatna shaitilya comes. Prayatna, the effort to dislodge us out of this bubble and then allow us to experience this deep relaxation. This is the prayatna shaitilya. And I'm sure those of you who have experienced a yoga asana class, after a yoga class, you feel the deep relaxation, especially towards the end when we do the shavasana, the final relaxation, it feels so blissful. And if we did not offer that effort, if we didn't do asanas and simply do the full 1 hour of shavasana, then we don't enter that deep relaxation. So the prayatna or the effort is an integral part of the practice that takes us towards deep relaxation. And then Patanjali talks about the third sutra that Patanjali gives is the benefit of asanas. Tato Dvandva nabhigataha. Here Patanjali says, with the practice of asanas, all the dualities or the conflicts or the play of opposites, they get resolved. So with practice of asanas, there is no longer any fight or a war that is raging in the body. And an example of a war that is raging in the body is the war between the tongue and the body's intelligence. For example, the cellular community of the body seeks nutritious food. So it's seeking nutrition, whereas the tongue is not seeking nutrition. It is seeking tasty food or delicious food. So there's a huge war that is raging between the tongue and the body's intelligence. And we have to decide which one we support at any given time. Are we eating junk food or are we eating nutritious food? Now, the principle that Patanjali says here is This conflict will get resolved with the practice of asanas. When we start doing the practice of yogasanas, after a few weeks or after a few months, you will discover that whatever is nutritious becomes tasty to you. In other words, the tongue and the body's intelligence no longer fighting each other. They are in the same team. So whatever we find tasty is also nutritious to the system. It's a win-win situation. So all these dvandvas or the conflicts will get resolved, is what Patanjali says. So these are the 3 sutras on asanas. And in these 3 sutras, Patanjali has captured the essence of the practice of yogasanas. So what are the 3 principles? Sthira Sukham Asanam. Stability and comfort is yogasana. And then Prayatna Shaitilya Ananta Samapattibhyam, by offering effort and relaxation. Again, effort and relaxation, effort and relaxation. After cycles of effort and relaxation, we experience infinite bliss. And then in the 3rd sutra, he talks about the conflicts getting resolved in the body. So all the cells, the 200 trillion cells of the body are working in the same team. They are together. There is no conflict of interest here in the body. So let us now transition into the practice of pranayama. I'm going to present 3 sutras on pranayama. Totally, Patanjali has given 5, but for the sake of time, I'm going to talk about 3 of them. So what is pranayama? The definition of pranayama, according to Patanjali, is the following. Tasmin sati shwasha prashwashayoho gati vicheda pranayamaha. Tasmin sati means remaining in this state of yoga posture. In other words, seat yourself steady and comfortably. Having brought the body to stability and comfort, the practice of regulating the in-breath and the out-breath. Shwasa is the in-breath and prashwasa is the out-breath. So when we regulate the in-breath and the out-breath, this practice is called pranayama. So we regulate the movement of prana in the system by indirectly controlling the breath. The movement of the breath and the movement of the prana in the system, they are correlated, they're connected, intimately related. So this practice is called pranayama. And this is what Patanjali gives as the definition of pranayama. Now, what are the benefits of pranayama? Patanjali devotes 2 sutras on the benefits of pranayama. And I'd like you to see, when I present the benefits of pranayama, how these benefits are different from the benefit of asanas. Remember, the benefit of asanas is removing the conflicts in the system. The asana, the benefits of pranayama is different, and we are going to see what they are now. And you will see how they complement each other so beautifully. So the first benefit of pranayama is tataha kshiyate prakasha avaranam. The practice of pranayama removes the veils of darkness that surround the inner light. So the word prakasha represents the inner light, the self, the exuberant expression of life. Life and light are synonymous in yoga. And in Yoga Sutras, you will see many times Patanjali uses these words interchangeably, light and life. So the exuberant expression of life or light, when it is covered by tamas or darkness, then we feel lethargy. We feel lazy or dull because of these layers of tamas, darkness that surround the inner light, the inner prakasha. In order to remove this darkness, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, lead me from darkness to light. So what is the way to do that? Patanjali says the way to do that is by practicing pranayama. And an analogy would be, if you see smoke that surrounds the inner light, the fire, to remove that smoke and to reveal the inner light, you need movement of air. So when you move air, it moves the smoke, it clears the smoke and reveals the inner light. In the same manner, movement of air by regulating the breath, by doing pranayama, it removes the smoke of tamas. It removes the veils of this darkness and reveals the inner light. So the practice of pranayama, it promotes vitality in the system, exuberant expression of life. So it removes the tamoguna. And the second benefit that Patanjali gives is the practice of pranayama brings the mind to a place of one-pointed focus. Dharana sucha yogyata manasaha. Dharana means concentration or focus. The practice of pranayama brings the mind to a place of one-pointed focus. It brings the mind to one place rather than allowing the mind to get scattered. Sometimes the mind is in so many places. The mind is so scattered, it's in different pieces. As they say, when the mind is in pieces, there is no peace of mind. We can experience peace of mind only when the mind has settled down and not jumping around in different places. So the way to bring the mind to a place of stability, to one place and focus, is by doing pranayama. So this is the second benefit that Patanjali gives for pranayama. And then let's put these two together, asanas plus pranayama. You see how beautifully they complement the benefits. Asanas removes conflicts in the system. It removes the rajoguna. The conflicts come from rajoguna, turbulence in the mind and in the body. Pranayama removes darkness, the veils of darkness. It removes the tamoguna. And then when we remove rajas and when we remove tamas, automatically the sattva comes up and the mind is now ready to sit for meditation. So asanas and pranayama are the way to prepare the mind for meditation. This is very beautiful because if we don't prepare the body or the breath and simply sit for meditation, expecting that the mind will cooperate with us in the practice, it doesn't work that way, right? Because 2 minutes into the practice of meditation, we discover, oh, my body hurts. I have a lower back ache, or I have itching on my nose. So the body disturbs you. The way to transcend the body is by doing asanas. We forget the body. Remember, when the body is stable, we forget the body. So the body will not disturb you. And by doing pranayama, we remove the tamas. The mind will not fall asleep when we sit for meditation. The lethargy will disappear. And the mind is now in a place of clarity. Patanjali, in one of the sutras, he talks about the sattvic mind as a crystal clear mind. Abhijata syeva mani, he says, crystal clear. The mind becomes crystal clear. And when we do asanas and pranayama, we establish the foundation for the mind to be in sattva. So practicing asanas and pranayama is beneficial. They work in synergy. If we do only one thing, suppose we decide, oh, I don't like pranayama because there is no action there. All the photogenic practices is all in asanas. So I'm going to devote all my time for asanas. That is not a good idea to remove pranayama from the practice, because practicing asanas alone, it reduces the rajas. But without pranayama, it can either bring up the tamas or the sattva. You see? So in order to bring down the tamas, we need to practice pranayama along with asanas. And vice versa. Practicing pranayama alone also is insufficient. We also need to introduce the practice of asanas, and they work together. They work together in synergy. And this theme you will see in all of yoga, in all of Yoga Sutras. Whenever we combine these practices, they work together in synergy. And what does synergy mean? The combination of something is more powerful than the sum of its parts. And that is what we see here when we combine asanas and pranayama. So thank you for your enthusiastic listening. Let me stop here and let me hand over to Ankurji.
Wow, you're stopping now. That was so amazing. The breakdown of each of the sutras, word by word, that was great, beautiful. Appreciate it a lot. I think a lot of people appreciated it. And I think I just want to give it to Ashwini ji. She's gonna expand on some of the programs and what's coming up. And Ashwini ji, take it away, please.
Thank you, Ankur. I just want to offer that the question answers will happen after the little presentation that I'm going to give you. So hang on that way. I hope you can see my presentation. Can you? Are you seeing my presentation?
Yeah, we can see your, no, we're seeing your website. We're seeing hua.edu on the homepage right now. Is that what you're trying to show? A different screen, yeah.
Yeah, give me a second.
Yeah, Anandji in the chat says complex things explained in a simple way. That's the sutra, and Dr. Sarothamji did that in a beautiful way as well. Ashwiniji, your turn to present on the overview of yoga studies at HUA. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Sriram, I know that you are all waiting for Dr. Sriram's question answer session. I'm just not going to take a lot of time, but at the same time, we want to talk about what are the different yoga studies that we are offering, and Dr. Sriram will be faculty in some of those as well. So you will get to hear more if you join these some of these courses. So coming to the studies here, who are we and what kind of yoga we bring? We bring integrated approach of yoga. I think you all, some of you at least, are aware of this Panchakosha model, where its body is not just body at the physical level, but also, just as you heard today, also at the prana level. So pranayama practices that Dr. Sriram is talking about. So we have these 5 levels: physical body, pranic body, mind as its own layer, and then intellect and bliss. So we work at all these levels: Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandamaya Kosha. So that is why we don't have any just asana teacher training versus pranayama teacher training. It's a complete teacher training or complete holistic yoga course which addresses all these levels. So we also focus on not just the Raja Yoga, which is what we just are listening to right now in terms of asana and pranayama. We also focus on other streams of yoga: the Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga. These are yoga performed during the day when you're working, or the contemplation that you're supposed to do when you hit those conflicts, Dvandva, as Dr. Sriram brought up. So all these different techniques, not just on the seat of the yoga or on the mat of yoga, but otherwise also off the mat as well. So yoga off the mat. So we work on providing that knowledge as well. And as Swami Vivekananda has said, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity by controlling nature, internal and external. So do this using work, worship, philosophy, or psychic control, which is what these 4 streams of yoga we are talking about. And that is the vision and mission that we carry. And why is yoga studies important? Whether you are into stress situation and you want to come out of that or handle that, or if you are stressed because you are a parent, or due to, we always attribute our stress to something else. So if you're a parent and you are having a tough time, there also yoga is an important way to teach you how to be a stress-free parent, or to address any of your chronic ailments. So these are some of the reasons one would approach yoga studies. And why is it an important discipline? It gives you lifestyle change. It helps you naturally with a lifestyle change. It's not a forced crash diet or forced lifestyle change. It helps build a network of like-minded people. So it just is an organic growth that one gets. And if you're a student, for example, it just is a great addition to your resume. Many students come to us for that sole reason, but then once they come here for that reason, they find that this has opened the doors to many of their own personality change, that they are a necessary change that they get into after that. And also it's a great addition to your any healthcare or research career, if you are looking for one as an adult and as a practitioner of your health, as a healthcare practitioner, or if you are into research. And why are we unique? We are basically Vyasa, Northern California here, where I'm sitting, but we are basically the branch of Swami Vivekananda Yoga Research Foundation. And we are also partner organization of Hindu University of America. We are a non-profit organization, and our aim has been to spread holistic yoga. Otherwise, what's the need for us? There is a studio every corner of US here and worldwide also. So we bring a combination of the research and the classical yoga, the best of the East and the West. So that's who we are. And what are the yoga studies we offer? Three streams, I should say. One is the holistic yoga short courses. These are basically if you have less time and you still want to know about the holistic yoga, including what you just heard, expanding on that from Dr. Sriram. We bring all of that in this holistic yoga short courses. We have been offering holistic yoga concepts and techniques as a 10-week, 1/4 course. This time we are innovatively launching holistic yoga practice intensive. It's a 1-week intensive, November 16th to 20th, which is next week, basically around the corner. I'll come to that in the next slide. Then that is the stream. The second stream is the therapeutic applications of yoga, which are also short courses for two purposes. One is you're already a teacher and you want to learn some of these techniques and what is holistic yoga, how to help others, or if you are yourself into situation where you want to handle your dear one's diabetes or back pain management or any such thing. At this point, we are focusing on diabetes and back pain management through yoga. The upcoming course is on diabetes management. We are already finishing or in between back pain management through HUA. And the third stream is yoga teacher training, which is a program, and it involves multiple modules and multiple courses, you can say. Teacher training intensive, we are providing that in, one is already on, and some of the HUA students have also joined for that. And the next one will be in winter 2021. And then also I write yoga retreat here, but it's done online. So, and the internship as well. Everything is online as of now. So yoga study schedule, holistic yoga 1, concepts and techniques, which is happening in 2 is, remove the 2 there. Holistic yoga 1 is coming up in winter 2021. It's a 2-credit course. Holistic yoga 2, it's also a 2-credit course. This is 1 week intensive that is happening November 16th to 20th, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Eastern, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. That is Pacific time, and the Eastern time we start at 12 noon and we end at 4 p.m. If you are have off, around that time, or if you would like to take during that time because you have time, feel free to do that. Then we have yoga teacher training, which is an 18-credit course. This is winter 2021. Therapeutic yoga courses, diabetes management, winter 2021.
I'm dropping some of the links in the chat as you're mentioning it. So if people want to look, and if you want me to drop something specific, just mention it.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ankur. And this is our yoga teacher training, which is a 18-credit course. Like we said, it's basically everything is as of now online. Hands-on training is also online, and we have done a fantastic job of handling 40 students in 10 different rooms. We give very focused attention in small ratios when the practicum training is happening. So please understand that it's not to be concerned. We have done a good job of it this ongoing course, and I think we'll be able to do that for the winter course as well. And people have been enjoying. There's nothing much we can do at this point, but if things open up, we also organize retreats, which are the 4-day retreats. But as of now, everything is online. Okay. More on the teacher training. It's a 10 credit. The intensive one is a 10 credit course. Intensive online, weekends only, 7 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. That is 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. And again, all integrating all of the aspects of of yoga. And holistic yoga retreat is a 3-credit course. As of now, we are doing it online. And then internship also is more, all of our mentoring, it happens online, and a field report is requested. There's a lot of process there. I don't want to take your time there. Contact us if you're interested. And that concludes my little advertisement, I should say. And I stop here. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Ashwini. That's great. We had some conversation going in the chat. I hope the links are there. Yes, the webinar recording will be made available. We'll send out a follow-up email that'll link to the courses. And I don't know if Kalyanji wants to step in and give it some closing thoughts on the presentation part, but we can get into questions from the audience otherwise. Okay, so thank you. So that presentation was great, necessary. Again, it shows the context, the depth and breadth of what HUA is and different ways that you can participate. Anshulji asks, how do you distinguish between prayatna, effort, and overexertion, right? When you're doing Surya Namaskars, at what point are asanas being overdone, in quotes? You have to breathe in, out, and hold your breath at various points. Is sweating a sign of overdoing?
Yes, that's an excellent question, Anshulji. So one of the things that Patanjali mentions in the context of intensity of practice. So one of the words he uses is tapas. Tapas is translated as intense practice or effort. Whenever we do intense practice, it should always be combined with what is called swadhyaya. They always go together. Swadhyaya is self-awareness or self-study. So if I do this practice, does it bring benefit to the body and mind, or is it detrimental? Am I experiencing discomfort or pain? So all the practices should be combined with the self-awareness. So when we use this self-awareness as a guide, we will never overdo the prayatna. If we don't have the self-awareness, suppose we are daydreaming and doing asanas, for example, then if there's a chance of overexerting, then it becomes what is called tamasic tapas. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that when we overdo tapas and rather than bringing benefit, it brings torture to the system. It is tamasic tapas, and that is not recommended in yoga. So the key here is to always do the practices with awareness.
Great. So some people are putting their questions in the chat. There's also a Q&A box. Please put your questions to our panelists in the Q&A box, and we can keep the conversations in the chat. Or you can raise your hand, and then I'll put you at the top, and then I can unmute you if you want to ask your questions directly. So Dhavalji, I'm gonna let you ask your question.
Okay, thank you, Ankur, and thank you very much for this session. The question I had is, in one of the slides you showed about that certain stages, right? You do asanas and pranayam, and different levels are there. So if someone is doing pranayam, but you see that they are not very stable asana wise and all that, so is that a sort of some error they are doing, or if someone is doing better at the pranayam, then they should be doing better at the asana level also? It's like going from the gross to the subtle, you know what I mean? Like if you're doing well in subtle, should you have been doing good in gross or not?
That's an excellent question, Dhavalji. So Patanjali, when he talks about the Ashtanga or 8 limbs, Anga means limbs, just like the limbs of the body. Now, just like when the body grows from an infant to adulthood, all the limbs of the body simultaneously grow together. You see, they are not steps. These are not 8 steps. It is not like the right arm will grow first and then the left arm will grow. It's not like that at all. So there's a simultaneous growth across all the angas. Like that, there's a simultaneous growth of all the 8 limbs of yoga. It's not that I'm going to become an expert in asana and then graduate to pranayama. It all is a holistic practice. It's a simultaneous growth. And in fact, the practice of asanas will help in the practice of pranayama and meditation and all the other 8 limbs. And the practice of pranayama will help asanas, etc. I remember a story. In fact, it's not a story. It happened when I was with my teacher. My teacher's name Yogacharya Subramanian, with whom I learned for 14 years in India. So once one of our students, a very senior student, he was able to do incredible postures. And he approached my teacher and said he wants to advance to the next higher version of the asana, next higher level of asana. So how do I make it even better? How can I make the body even more flexible? And all of us were curious to hear what our teacher had to say. We thought, oh, he is going to give us some more steps to benefit the body or use some props and things like that. But what he said was very surprising. He said, meditate more, meditate more. Because when we meditate, the muscles relax and the body naturally becomes more agile, more light. So you see how the other angas, the other aspects of the Ashtanga Yoga help with asanas as well. So if you find that when we practice pranayama, the body is unsteady, don't worry, just keep up with the holistic practice. And in due course of time, the stability will come automatically.
Okay, thanks. So there's some synergy. Ankur, just a quick follow-up. So the other slide you showed this comfort zone, and then you said comfort zone is comfortable, but then by doing prayatna, you get to a bliss, right? So what is behind that? Why does that happen? Because some people who are in the comfort zone, enjoying playing video games or whatever, they are feeling they are quite happy, and they feel they are in bliss. So what is it that makes the prayatna create bliss more than the comfort zone?
That's an excellent question. So I'm sure you have discovered that being a couch potato is not sustainable, right? In the sense that if we laze out for like an hour, it feels good. If we laze out for 6 hours, or if we oversleep and wake up very late in the morning, we feel a little groggy. Too much of it's tamas. It's not really sukham. It's not samadhi. It's more tamas. We just stupefied, right? So the component in yoga that brings the sustained sukham is actually stiram. So another way to look at stiram and sukham is when we are able to sit for meditation, when the body doesn't demand more effort to remain in that posture, then we'll be able to meditate without feeling exhausted at the end of it. You see, so in the stiram and sukham, very little demand on prana is happening in the body, so we don't feel exhausted. But when we are couch potato, there is no stiram there. We just simply plop. The body is not in stiram. When the body is not in stiram, remember, we don't feel the lightness of the body. The body feels heavy. And when the body feels heavy, it actually consumes more prana to sustain the body. And that is why that little bit of prayatna is there to help us reach towards higher sukham. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, that's a very beautiful verse that says, Yattadagre vishamiva pariname amrutopamam. That means the effort that we make, the willingness to go through some discomfort in the short term for the sake of gaining a higher bliss. This effort is a sattvic effort. And that will take us towards higher and higher levels of bliss, deeper and deeper relaxation. So we jump out of that little bubble of comfort zone and experience deep relaxation.
Thank you very much for the excellent answers. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Dhavalji. I just saw one more question on the chat box from Sundarji. Does tapas generate heat in the body? And that's a very good point. In fact, the literal meaning of the Sanskrit word tapas is to scorch or to heat. The literal meaning of tapas is to heat. So it's a metaphorical way to say that we are willing to step into a zone of discomfort. It seems a little bit paradoxical, right? We want to get to a place of comfort, sukham, but in the short term, we have to go through some discomfort. So that stepping into the fire, if you will. So this is tapas.
Great. So we have about 5 hands raised, and then we have about 14 open questions in the Q&A box. So there's a lot of interest. We're just at the top of the hour. I appreciate everyone being on so far. And if it's okay with our panelists, we can continue depending on your schedule, how many questions we take, but maybe we can just be a little bit more, I mean, I appreciate the long answers. It's up to you how you want to be. I'll be here if you want to. Ashwini-ji, you have something that you want to say?
Yeah, quick thing to add. People have been asking if there is any order in the courses that we are offering. Each of these are independent in many ways, but at the same time, it'll be good to, some of the courses say you should have already practiced yoga before. So practice of yoga for holistic yoga 2 and for teacher training is essential, but other than that, courses are independent. It's not exactly, there's no prerequisite as such regarding the HOA courses that we are offering. Thank you.
Great. One of the courses we're offering this quarter is managing back pain. That sounds very interesting, the way we're applying it. The next time we're going to be offering it is going to be, somebody's asking.
Diabetes management. Diabetes management.
But when are we going to offer back pain yoga again?
Oh, one quarter this and the following quarter.
Following quarter. Okay, thank you. And I'm trying to manage who raised their hand first and who posted a question first. Anonymous asks, how much time shall I spend on asana versus pranayama versus meditation? Is there a ratio?
The ratio is actually flexible. And so my teacher, one of my teachers, Sriram Ramaswamy, so he has written a book called Yoga for the 3 Stages of Life. And in that, depending on where we are in life, for example, during childhood, it's a good idea to spend a lot of time on asanas. And then during the adult years, middle years, more time on pranayama. And in the later years, more on meditation. So that is the general guideline that is given.
Okay, Ganpati ji has both posted in the Q&A and has his hand up, so I'm going to unmute you. And well, now you can unmute yourself if you want to ask your question.
Hi, thank you, Sarvotamji. Very nice presentation. I'm also interested in the Sanskrit side of things. Like, I'm interested in learning Yoga Sutra, the language through the, what is that something that you're offering also or not?
So let me defer that question to Ashwini ji.
As of now, it is these, not exactly Sanskrit. There is a Sanskrit Bharati and Sanskrit stream offered by HUA in conjunction with Sanskrit Bharati, I suppose. Anything there?
Yeah.
We don't offer just Sanskrit. We do include Sanskrit in there. And as we said, it's quite authentic, and we bring all of these in their own original, with their own original meaning. But just Sanskrit, not Yoga Bharati.
Okay.
So that's one aspect of it. And this is where HUA is a partner with so many different organizations. We have a whole Sanskrit program, right? A certificate.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's that angle. There might be specific courses where we have yoga. I'm not sure, Chandra Raghuji or Srinath Chakravarti can give you details on that side.
Okay.
And I'd like to add one more thing there. The combination of Sanskrit and Yoga Sutras, learning both at the same time, it's actually it's a brilliant idea. It's a fantastic idea because Maharishi Patanjali, not only did he make a big contribution in yoga, he also made a big contribution in Sanskrit grammar. So the first Dhyana shloka that I started out with, it says Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham. So yoga for the mind, and then grammar for ease of communication. So he wrote a text on Sanskrit grammar. And also he wrote a text on Ayurveda, Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena. So we make 3 big contributions to humanity.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, Ganpati ji, thank you for that. We'll look into that. We're always coming up with new courses. That sounds very interesting. Anything else follow up for you?
No, thank you. I am studying Sanskrit. That's why yoga, Patanjali's Panini Sutras and all that. So Yoga Sutra is something that I am also very interested in taking that course. In addition to obviously the yoga asanas and all that also. So that's why I was asking that question. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right.
So I'm seeing a question here by Ketanji. So how consistent should we do the Yogasana practice? Can we do daily or weekly, or what is the guidance on the quality of yoga practice? And Patanjali actually has an answer for this. He quotes a sutra. He gives a sutra that says, Satu Dirga Kala Nairantarya Satkara Sevito Dridabhumihi. So in order to elevate the quality of our practice, he says there are 4 ingredients for a high quality yoga practice. And I'm sure you're eager to know what are the 4 ingredients, I hope. So the first ingredient of a high quality yoga practice is, it should be a long-term effort. In other words, dedicating oneself to the practice of yoga for several years or the whole life. It is not like a weekend thing. It's not a short-term thing. It's a long-term commitment. That is the first ingredient of a high-quality yoga practice. The second is Nairantarya. The practice should be unbroken. We should not take a holiday. oh, today is Thanksgiving, so I'm going to skip my yoga. It's not like that at all. We do it consistently without a break. And then the third is the practice should be done with honor and respect. There is a sense of sacredness that should come to the practice. It should not be done because somebody is forcing you to do it, or it should not come from a space of obligation or complaint. Oh, I promised myself to do yoga and we have to drag the body inside the yoga mat. It's not like that at all. We have to be eager, jump into the yoga mat and flash a beaming smile. So with enthusiasm, we do yoga. That's the third ingredient of a high quality yoga practice. And there's a fourth ingredient. Do the practice as asevito. Asevita means with a sense of service. We are serving the cells of the body by creating a comfortable space for them. That sukham is for the cells of the body to relax. So we serve the body rather than doing the practice with demand, saying, I'm doing yoga practice, you better lose those 20 pounds. No, it's not like that at all. We do it with a space of service. So long time, without a break, with honor and respect, and with an attitude of service.
Very good. Thank you. You took that one just a little bit out of order, but that's fine. Let's go to the Dichiji Shiv. Sorry for not saying that correctly. Introduce yourself. I'm going to unmute you. Yeah.
Sriramji, Ankurji, and that's a great presentation. I actually got my questions answered, so thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to take the course. I have been practicing yoga since I was in 8th grade. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and my uncle used to travel in like 11 different countries to promote yoga. So luckily, I was exposed with yoga in my family since my pre-monastic days. But I would love to learn more. It's like a journey, and we are all together in the same journey. So thank you so much. Very, very beautifully explained. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have Vasantji. Vasant, let me allow you to talk.
Thank you very much, Ankurji. Namaste, everyone. Sriramji, wow, your explanation itself is like the qualities of a sutra. Thank you so much for that. Especially when we are on the path and then applying the practice with such easy to grasp explanations. It's just like synergism, as you rightfully said. Just one question on your initial slide there on the yoga as described by sage Patanjali. You described 3 types of yoga: Samadhi yoga, Kriya yoga, and Ashtanga yoga. Is this, it's something new to my mind, especially the Samadhi yoga, because from my grasp of it so far, yoga is Samadhi, and isn't all the others just encompassing Samadhi, or is it something that is distinct and separate in the sutras that you are, from your knowledge and experience?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Vasanji. So the 3 segments of yoga that I had presented in that slide, there are actually 3 streams of practices to get to the same place, to get to the state of yoga. So for beginning students who have difficulty in disciplining their mind, in other words, the mind is not yet listening to them, but the body is listening to them. So it's easy to do actions rather than direct the thoughts. For them, Kriya Yoga is suggested. And then for adept practitioners, they don't need to deal with the body. They can directly deal with the mind. So Samadhi Yoga is suggested. And Patanjali does not call that set of practices as Samadhi Yoga. It's the later commentators and the scholars who have termed that as Samadhi Yoga, Raja Yoga. Whereas Patanjali, he calls the yoga of action as Kriya Yoga. So, and when we talk about yoga, what is the definition of yoga? So basically, if we look at the etymological definition, I mean, most people think of yoga as union, and it is correct. It is one of the definitions that is given in the Dhatu Pata. When we look at the verb yuj, that is the root of the word yoga. In the Dhatu Pata, it gives 2 definitions of the word yuj. One is union. I forget the exact sutra where it defines the union aspect of it. So uniting different parts together is huge. But Patanjali does not subscribe to the definition in the Yoga Sutras. He does not reference that. He uses the other definition in the Dhatupata, which is Yuja Samadho. Yoga is Samadhi. And as you rightly pointed out, going to that place of Samadhi is that state of yoga. And it's very interesting that Patanjali begins the Yoga Sutras. The first chapter is called Samadhi Yoga. And you might be wondering, like, why does he start with something very, for adept yogis, he gives Samadhi Yoga in the beginning so that the adept yogis don't have to waste time with simple practices. Perhaps that was the motivation. So Samadhi Yoga is for people who have the Ekagra Chitta, that means one-pointed mind. They can easily go into that space of mental equipoise.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I'm going through the Q&A box, and it comes up again and again. And I know you've kind of answered it in different ways. Maybe it needs a sutra just to drive it home. But that idea of what do you do first? What's the order? How much time, right? Pranayama or Asana? How long do you remain in the pose? Right, the preferred order. Meditation is a part of that question. So there's like 3 or 4 people asking that again. And I know you've gone into it. Maybe it's just a sutra and drive it home, and I'll just consider those answered.
Yeah, thank you for that enthusiasm. And yes, the way to bring life to all these teachings of Patanjali is to practicalize it. And how do we practicalize it? What is the order in which we do it? It's all very important. And I will mention a couple of things. But before that, I would highly suggest that if there is so much enthusiasm to actually do these workshops, the teacher training programs that Ashwini ji mentioned, because this is a very unique opportunity. In very few places you find the combination of the knowledge part as well as the practice part. In many of the yoga studios where people get trained in as yoga teachers, there's a lot of emphasis on the anatomy and the practice part of it, which are equally important, yes. But then the firm foundation of the yoga principles, we have it right here, thanks to the work by HUA and Yoga Bharati and Ashwini ji and so forth. So to answer your question specifically, the most, I would say, popular way of sequencing the yoga practice inside the yoga mat is to go from the gross to the subtle. So start with the body first, and then the breath, and then move on to the mind, meditation. Now, there are some other streams of yoga that play around with this order, but the most common way to do it is to start with the gross body and then go to the breath, which is the subtle body, and then the mind and the vasanas and the samskaras, the deeper aspects of the body, the karana shariras. So starting from the outside to within, that is the order in which it's usually done. And how long should we hold a yoga posture? It depends. Different schools of yoga, they have different recommendations. And in the practice of yoga that I do, it's called the Vinyasa Krama yoga. In Vinyasa Krama yoga, we measure the amount of time to stay in a yoga posture with the number of breaths. How long do you hold it? Do you hold it for 6 breaths, or do you hold it for 60 breaths, and so forth? So we measure in a number of breaths, and usually most of the postures we hold it for 6 breaths, and 6 long breaths. It becomes almost like 4 or 5 minutes for a yoga posture. And there are some postures where, as you see, Patanjali does not give examples of postures at all. They all come in later texts. And one of the later texts, it says there are some postures that we need to hold for a longer time in order to receive the benefits. And so it depends on the posture, and there is a general rule of thumb as well.
Well, that general rule of thumb, I hadn't heard it before, about 6 breaths. That was very interesting because it gives it a whole different context depending on what posture you're in, etc. Is there any reason for that 6 breaths? Or is it just like, just makes sense?
That's a good question. I guess it's more like a convention. It takes some time to get into the posture and to feel the ease and comfort. It takes a few breaths to settle down in that posture and then move on to the next.
So it seems like breaths is a better measure than minutes sometimes. So in terms of this presentation, these slides, that's going to be Sriramji's decision. The webinar we will make available, but the slides are his intellectual property. And in a class, even there, it's up to the professor if they're going to share that. Do you want to make a comment on that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'll be very happy to share the slides.
All right, so we'll do that. So Arunaji's says they have an MA Sanskrit from HUA MIT SVS. I've chosen the elective yoga for my second semester, and the course title is Applied Vedic Sciences, Basic Yoga, Winter 21. How is this connected to the yoga teacher's training? So maybe the specific instances that students have and what they're in, we'll have counselors call. We generally will have Pragyaji will call folks after a webinar and see how that goes. But if Ashwini ji wants to answer this generally, as opposed to a student specific.
Interestingly, I'm doing my MA also through HUA, and definitely I'm also taking all these courses. So yoga teacher training definitely complements it. I'm one of the students at HUA taking MA courses, and I also teach the yoga teacher training. All I can say is that they just complement each other, and I become richer by learning the Sanskrit MA courses, especially Yoga 1 and Veda 1, all these different courses. I just audit them, but definitely it helps. So they are complementary. They are not, we are not exactly teaching the same thing. I mean, knowledge is the same thing, just the approach is different. More Sanskrit emphasis is on in the MA courses. Thank you.
We're at about 10:17, still a few open questions. Venkaji, is Padmasana the only posture to be stable? If someone has limitations sitting crisscross on the floor, which posture would be appropriate to achieve stability?
So there are a buffet of options. When we look at the repository of asanas, there are so many varieties of asanas, and there is one specific class of asanas which are meant for meditation. And as you pointed out, Padmasana, the lotus posture, is one of them. But we don't need to sit in a lotus posture if the body is not comfortable or steady in that posture. There are other meditative postures as well. For example, Vajrasana, and there's even the simple cross-legged position, our regular cross-legged position, Sukhasana. That is also a meditative posture. Or even if that is difficult, just sitting on a chair. Sitting on a chair, that is also a meditative posture. Only thing to keep in mind when we sit for meditation is, this is from the Bhagavad Gita, it says, Samam Kaya Shiro Grivam. Keep the spine, neck, and the head in equilibrium. You see, you stack them so that they are in equilibrium. So that posture is the best for allowing the movement of prana along the spine, especially along the three, the Sushumna, Ida, and the Pingala. So it allows the movement of prana that will create the space for meditation to happen. So you have a lot of choice for meditative postures.
What are the role of mantras, and does tapas require mantras to be chanted?
That's an excellent question. In fact, Patanjali himself talks about mantras in the Yoga Sutra. There's a sutra that says, Janma Aushadhi Mantra Tapas Samadhida Siddhayaha. So in order to reach Samadhi, there are many options, and one of the options that Patanjali states is mantra, the use of the sounds, the mantras. And mantras, as you know, mananat strayate iti mantra, that which protects the mind from getting into a rut of repeated thought, regurgitating the same thought of anxiety or fear. If you want to step away from it, mantras will help. And one way to use mantra in the practice of yoga, again, Patanjali suggests that in the Yoga Sutras, he says, Tadjapas tadartha bhavanam. Use the mantra for japa. Japa. Japa means repeated chanting of that mantra, either verbally chanting it aloud or mentally chanting in our own mind, repeatedly doing that. So what happens is when we start repeatedly chanting, say in the mind, then it will not allow the mind to go all around the place. It will stop the excursion of the mind away from the self. So it will prevent a distraction. It will create the habit of bringing the mind to the self. So this is very helpful practice for the mind not to be distracted or not to get scattered. It improves the power of focus.
Great. What was the name of the book on the different stages of life, the yoga for different stages book name? What was the name of that? Ishaji's asking.
Yes, I'll also write it in the chat box. It is Yoga for the 3 Stages of Life. And the author's name, my teacher's name, is Srivatsa Ramaswamy. So let me just write it here.
Is there any age limit recommendation for learning Patanjali Yoga Sutras? There's a couple other questions on age. Somebody further down asked, do you have any courses, classes for young kids? I think there's only 2 about age that we had in here. Can we take those together?
For the young kids, we do have at Yoga Bharati, we offer courses, and I think HUA also offers courses during summer and various times like that. You can contact either me. I can type that over here. If you are interested in regular yoga classes, yes, we do offer that. And if you're interested in any summer camps and things like that, HUA offers them. Last camp was very good camp on yoga for teenage, yogic concepts for teens. So we might be bringing some summer camps through HUA as well. You can contact us.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think there's an age limit or a starting point. Wherever you are, you get involved and you do what you can.
And the interesting point about the age limit for Yoga Sutras, that's a very good question, because what age do we introduce Yoga Sutras? The way I learned is I started learning yoga when I was 11 years old. And the way my teacher introduced Yoga Sutras is initially as a way to chant. So I didn't know the meaning for several years. I just used to chant it like we chant slokas and just chant the Sanskrit. It felt so good. Chanting the Yoga Sutras itself is a very powerful, very meditative experience. And later on, when we are ready for it, so that's when my teacher started explaining and giving meaning, putting life to the Yoga Sutras that we have already memorized. So perhaps that is one good strategy to introduce Yoga Sutras that way as for chanting.
Yeah. Arunji asks, how many hours do you sleep, Dr. Sarottamji? Sleep is a part of body maintenance. Maybe there's something that you would like to share on that?
Yes, it is said that when we practice meditation, it actually reduces the requirement of sleep. They even give some numbers. I saw this actually in a medical journal. I don't want to quote the wrong numbers, but it said something to the effect of 20 minutes of meditation can reduce the requirement of sleep by, I think, an hour. I don't remember the exact numbers. But yes, with the practice of asanas and pranayama, so if somebody tells you that, oh, I don't have time to practice asanas and pranayama, so you can gently tell them that you will save 1 hour of sleep. So you gain back some time. But more importantly than that is the 16 hours that we are awake, we are able to be much more efficient during the course of the day. So I believe that is a far more profound benefit. When we are awake, we are so fully awake that we are able to get much more things done. And I think that's truly a great benefit. And by the way, Patanjali also talks about sleep in the Yoga Sutras. Swapna Nidra Dhyana Lambanamba. There's a sutra where he says that inquiry into the nature of sleep and becoming aware of that sleep process, all that is itself a sadhana.
Nice. Amazing. Amazing. Karthik ji has a question. He has his hand raised. Let me allow Karthik ji to speak.
Yeah, namaste. Thank you for the great session. Ashwini ji, I actually would like to understand the course offerings a little bit better. Especially, I mean, I've taken classes at HUA and I'm taking some class right now too. So I think you mentioned this last time too, and I wanted to understand what is it. Of course, I'm doing some yoga and pranayama and things like that, and I would like to know more about it. I would like to understand the courses from the perspective of becoming a teacher versus becoming a practitioner. And if you can concentrate on that aspect of it, especially for somebody who knows what yoga is and what pranayama is and has been doing it, what would be a good class to take? That's what I would like to understand. If you can go back to that slide, it would be great. It would be great for HPA also and also for me.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, very good question there. And in fact, all of these streams that we have shown here, they all are not just for becoming teachers. When we say yoga teacher training program, and I joined as a software engineer when in 2006. So I was not into teacher training at that point. I was still working as a software engineer. When I joined this course, I was not planning to even become a teacher. The whole idea here is to take the course as if, when we say master's course, what is master's? Like Dr. Sriram is talking now, it's as if, a master is talking, but his goal was not to start as a teacher, right? We end up becoming a teacher when we master the subject. So the idea here is to master the subject of yoga so that you can share your knowledge as a teacher. So whether it is teacher training program or holistic yoga courses, we have laid out all these courses in different formats with a different focus, not because each of these courses will make us take up as a career alone, like some of them do. But the point is not to start with a career. It's just you end as a teacher. You don't start as a teacher. First, you need to develop that mastery. And so all of the focus of even the teacher training program, even here in the retreat and internship, is to develop that sadhana, to develop that ability to practice, an ability to ground into these teachings that we are talking about and discussing about, so that when you feel it, it is like you keep the milk for boiling and the cream, just overflows, right? So the idea is the teaching that we are talking about is not like any other school teacher. It's basically sharing that innermost experience. So yoga teacher is not the same as a science teacher, for example, because there are no facts and figures that are given here. It is an inspiration that you're inspiring others. So from that perspective, any of these courses, depending on your time, depending on how much you want to get into, you can take any of these. You can start with holistic yoga short courses. You can, if you have already been practicing, you can take holistic yoga practice intensive, which is coming up soon, or you can take even the diabetes management. Any of these, they are not necessarily reductionist. We talk only about diabetes and exact technique only to help the pancreas. It doesn't work like that. Yoga is holistic no matter what, and all these concepts have to be built even into yoga for diabetes. And then a little bit more focus on the aspects of diabetes and how to work to reduce some of the techniques. Very, very little focus on that, but otherwise most of the focus is on overall holistic aspects. Hope that answers your question.
Great. Thank you, Karthik ji, for that question. Thank you for that explanation, Ashwini ji. We are at almost 10:30. I think the longer we go, more people get more thoughts and are asking more questions. I don't know how we're feeling. Any thoughts? Do we just keep going? All right, we'll keep going for a little bit. Kayanji, do you have any thoughts?
I think we've spent an hour and a half. I think probably we should conclude responsibly at this time. Okay, so and I would just encourage people to take courses and get into the conversation at a deeper level. Okay, so with that, let's conclude.
Well, maybe a closing thought from Sriram ji and Ashwini ji, and then I'll just make sure that I put the links for the courses in there. We're going to share the replay. The survey is going to go out. It's going to have the links for some of these courses. please do enroll. Maybe some closing thoughts from our panelists, and we will conclude. Thank you all for joining us for this wonderful webinar.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and thanks for everyone's enthusiasm. It was really amazing to share about yoga, and especially in this day and age when most people, when they think about yoga or when they open a yoga book, they see acrobatics or gymnastic kind of. It has been reduced to a very small slice of the broad gift of yoga. I think this knowledge, the holistic aspect of yoga, needs to be encouraged, and we need to go deeper into study of the holistic yoga and to share with others. And I'm very grateful to HUA and to Yoga Bharati for doing exactly that, and in a very passionate, and it's amazing to be part of the team. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.